Hey everyone, we're going to see if this works today in terms of the weather outside, because the wind may be a bit too strong, but I thought it might be fun to have New York City as a backdrop. There's wonderful New York. I wanted to talk really quick about Hillary's new proposal to rein in the cost of drug prices. She just talked about it earlier today, and I was so excited to hear it. This has been a pet peeve of mine for years, and I think people who don't travel abroad don't fully understand how much we're paying as Americans for drugs that no one around the world pays the same price. Hillary talked about the fact that, first of all, we subsidize drug companies by Americans subsidize them through the taxes. They get tax write-offs on the research and development they do. Second of all, and this is a point I really hadn't thought of that Hillary raised, we subsidize these companies by the FDA testing their drugs. The FDA basically makes sure these drugs are safe, and then the companies go around the world and get to sell them to everybody. Of course, we're using our tax dollars to make sure these drugs are safe and then selling them to other people who didn't have to pay for it. Her third point then was talking about the prices themselves, which are out of control. And I went back and looked at a few posts I wrote looking at when I used to go to France, and I would go and basically buy my drugs for the year in France for my asthma because they were so much more expensive here in the States. And I'm looking at some of the prices I had written down. In France, I would go and buy Advair, a very popular prescription drug for asthma. My Advair in France was $73. When I buy the same Advair here in the States at Costco, I would pay $391. That's 5 times the price you'd pay here in the States. Now, Symbicort, another drug that I would use for my asthma, $60 in France, $272 in the States. That's 4.5 times more expensive in the States. And my favorite, when my doctor tried to switch me to something cheaper, he thought, oh, maybe we'll put you on Asmonex, which might be as effective as Advair, not sure, but it should cost you a lot less. Well, Asmonex was cheaper. It only was $197 a month here in the States. Guess how much it was in France? $25. In other words, Merck, who owns Asmonex, was charging 7.9 times as much to sell the same drug here in the States, 8 times as much than they did in France. Now, a point to raise here, because some people like to say, oh, that's because France is socialist and, all this kind of crazy stuff. In fact, the only reason the prices are that cheap in France is because the government, oh, hello, we have young women having fun here in the park. The only reason the drugs are that much cheaper in France is because the government actually negotiates the prices of the drugs. That's it. They don't subsidize them. There's no subsidy going on. It's simply that the government says, look, you want to sell in our country, we're going to negotiate the price. The drug companies say, okay, yeah, we'll give you a cheaper deal, and we'll just charge the Americans more. Let me give you a little bit more about what they've been doing with drug prices. This was one I was really surprised when I went 2 years ago to France, because I noticed that the price for one of my drugs actually dropped. And I asked the woman behind the counter, I said, could you double check how much I paid a couple years ago, because I always go to the same pharmacy, and they love me over in Montparnasse in France, because the woman always remembers me and goes, oh, you're the American who pays the crazy prices. So I asked her to check. This was great. Advair, GlaxoSmithKline is the company. Advair in the US over the last 5 years has gone up in price 43%. What do you think it's changed in France over the last 5 years? They've dropped the price 13% in France. So not only did they raise the price almost 50% in the US, they dropped it in France. Same thing for AstraZeneca's Symbicort, one of the other big asthma drugs. Symbicort raised 40% in the States. They raised the price over the last 5 years. In France, they dropped the price 17%. This is what drug companies are doing to us. Now, what's also important to know is that price I give in France is pre-insurance, meaning the French have a really good insurance system, and they're not even going to be paying that. So when I say it's costing $17 or $27, that's the price if you don't have insurance at all. If you have insurance, I don't even know, you may pay $3, $4. One of the final points about negotiating drug prices, which I thought was really fascinating and just continues to irk me, and I Googled it again before coming out here, and it's true, folks. Congress has banned the federal government from negotiating drug prices for Medicare. Let me repeat that, okay? Medicare, as you know, big program covering lots of senior Americans, and because it's one big program covering all these seniors, they've got some market value there. Basically, however many millions of seniors, I don't know if it's tens of millions, they've got that many people who they need to buy drugs for. So they actually could negotiate the prices with a big drug company and say, we've got a market of 20 million people, 30, 40 million people, let's get a lower price. Well, the US government isn't allowed to do that because Congress banned it. Think about that. They banned the federal government from simply negotiating in a free market to get a better price. That's how much the drug companies own Congress. It's just beyond believable. So, I'm just going to sort of leave you with this thought, but basically, you and I are subsidizing drug prices around the world. When you go to the doctor and then you go to the pharmacist, you are literally paying a tax because you're American, so that people around the world, and we're not talking poor people in Africa or somewhere, we're talking so that people in France who make decent salaries and people in Germany who make decent salaries can pay a lot less for drugs because you and I are subsidizing them. And that's insane. So I was very glad to hear Hillary mention it today during her speech. I hope there's something that can be done after she gets elected, if she gets elected, because as someone very, let's just say someone very well connected in Washington told me during the whole Obamacare legislative battle, the drug companies, they control both parties. They've got both of them, and it's the money they put in politics, and that's something we're going to have to address. But anyway, I'll even see if there was a question here or anything. So I'll put my glasses back on. Yeah, Philip is saying. Yep, my friend Philip is saying that he's getting a new Advair prescription today. His copay is $150 a month. That's the copay is $150 a month. Monique, my friend Monique is saying, are you supporting Hillary now? I am supporting Hillary now, Monique. Yes, I was an Obama supporter in 2008. I fully admit it, but I've been on the Hillary bandwagon from the beginning of the primaries. Yeah. All right, guys, I will leave it at that. This is my ongoing test to try Facebook Live and see if it works. One more time, we'll give you a great little view of New York City. My friend Gabriel Arana and I did talk the other day. I told him if we can get a decent enough connection, we should go around town and see if we can maybe do these broadcasts from all over New York, because I think it might be kind of fun just to give like small tours of New York while we do these talks. Just to say where I am right now, actually, this is Long Island City, which is Queens, the borough of Queens. It's still New York City officially, but it's across the river from Manhattan. You can see the UN over there. Anyways, there you go. I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you. Goodbye.